The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at wrestlingwithjohners.com. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Wrestling with Johners, episode 283. I'm pretty sure we're up to 283, and today I've got an awesome guest for a Monday evening, and I've got a long intro here, so I'm going to read it straight from the screen because it's worth it. Today I'm joined by one of the very best heavyweights in the country, in the UK, the current EWA Champion and the current EWE Heavyweight Champion, the One Man Armoury, Bullit. Bullit, how are you doing? And thank you so much for coming on the show.
I'm doing great, John. Yeah, thank you for having me on, man. It's good to be here.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Like I say, we're going to take a deep dive into Bullit's career, his love for pro wrestling, what he's up to in more recent times, in particular Solve Pro, Progress, being part of one of the hottest wrestling angles in the UK, and all that good stuff, But if you want to get in touch with the show, you can do. We are live. We're live across Facebook. We're live across Twitch and YouTube. So please get in touch with the show. Send us your questions for the show. Send us your questions for Bullit. As I said in the intro, one of the very best heavyweights in the UK in 2023. Just send your questions through to us using your chosen device. They'll ping through to us, and we do our very best to bring them up live on air. And we've had a few questions come through already, Bullit, but great to see you. I mean, the last time we spoke, the last time we saw you was at Progress Show last November. I think it was. They think it's all over. And that was just after you had your debut match for Progress. But I mean, in a nutshell, 2022 was a bit of a crazy year for you. Kind of so many opportunities, so many debuts, so many amazing matches and opponents. And like I say, getting to debut for one of the biggest independent wrestling promotions in Europe, or further afield, some might say. But in a nutshell, sum up your 2022 for us, Bullit.
Yeah, it was mad. I mean, so things were going okay before lockdown, and then after lockdown, I kind of got to know people. My networking just naturally improved. I just ended up meeting more and more people, and then it still just kind of simmered, and then something just went bananas in 2022, especially in the second half of 2022, where just my inbox was just getting blown up and stuff, and I was just super appreciative of it, just working in places that I didn't necessarily ever kind of guarantee to myself that I'd get to, and I'm there now. I'm in places that I was looking at from afar once upon a time, not that long ago, but just.
What do you think? What do you think changed? What do you think was that? Because, like I say, you were doing great things in certain promotions, and we'll talk about some of those shortly. But then, like you say, just things started to explode. You got a lot more prominence. You were seen in a lot more places. What do you think was that pivotal kind of change in your career?
Mixture of a lot of things. I think opportunity is everything. Timing is everything as well. Especially with the Progress thing, right? So I just happened to, because I never went to Progress, right? I never went to a Progress show. I was either busy, I'm a dad, I've got 2 kids. So I was, if Progress had a show and I wasn't booked anywhere, that's a rare opportunity for me to be at home. But then I pushed that sort of envelope. And one of the things that changed it was one of the last Everything Pattern shows that they did, because it had a lot of my friends on it. So I wanted to go and support people like Alexander Roth, Jordan Said, Roy Johnson, and I wanted to just go and check it out. I'd seen Everything Pattern shows online before and thought the vibe was great. So that's the only reason really why I went. But then I introduced myself to the team at Progress, and they then had me in consideration. So then I got invited to a show, and I went there and had, a few chats with a few people. And then I got a message from Spike Trivet.
Of all people. Of all people. And we'll probably mention Spoke's name maybe once or twice during this interview, maybe once or twice.
Sure.
But the first picture I want to flash up on screen is this one here. Now, you were at Solve Pro yesterday in Manchester. I know you're part of this quite impressive faction with Kelly Six, LA Taylor, Danny Duggan, and Leighton Buzzard there. Yeah, there you are in the centre. Tell us a bit about that, because that photo dropped all over socials today, and an impressive looking faction there. But tell us the circumstances around that, and how you kind of became part of that group. And what's the group called, first of all?
It's called the Killective. It was a group that started up in the first rain show for Sovereign Pro back last year. And basically the message is simple for the group, and that is undervalued, underutilized wrestlers being finally given an opportunity. And that was originally started by Leighton Buzzard, Danny Duggan, and Kelly Six, guys that have, Leighton Buzzard's coming through now, but some might say, and I'm one of them, is that he's not coming through quick enough. There's not enough people that are picking him up. He's been putting people on blast in ICW for ages.
Yeah.
And, talk to an American, we don't live in a very big island, so there's plenty of space, and there's not that much it takes to bring Leighton Buzzard down from ICW and use him in other promotions. Danny Duggan is a wrestling machine. He's a cyborg. Do you know what I mean? He's just one of the most consummate wrestlers in the country, and he's just not either appreciated or, well, it's not going to be that sort of a shoot interview, right? But, I'm not too pleased with some of the reasons why I think Danny Duggan might not be in use, right? And then Kelly Six is one of the innovators of a lot of the style that is so popular now in British wrestling. He helped train, helped bring up some of these guys, yet they're all now here. And where's Kelly Six? You know what I mean? Is he even getting a thank you? So that's why he's in the group as well. And Shotty Horror, who runs Soft Pro, and some of the other producers like Zuby and Gigi, they spoke to me and they said, can you come along to the show to make sure that nothing really kicks off too harsh with those guys, because they're pushing the envelope a little bit. They're maybe taking things a little bit too far with what they have to say. But then I had a conversation with them, and they changed my opinion on what I wanted to do at Soft Pro, which was also to stand next to them and say, I've had enough. I've had enough of underutilized wrestlers. I've had enough of people that have got opportunities for reasons that aren't down to their talent. And Lauren's the same. There's people that bring Lauren up, but there's people that hold Lauren back. And as a group, and a damn good looking group, I got to say, right?
Hell yeah. Look at that. Bring it up again.
That is 5 good looking human beings.
There's
right there.
A lot going for that group for sure.
So yeah, that's the message behind the group. Basically, is if you wanna hold good talent down, then try and hold the group down, because we've all got each other's backs now, basically.
Yeah, and even more, formidable now that they've got you part of that package. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And Soft Pro, like I say, I think that's maybe their second show. Truly phenomenal group with what they've done so far. And like I say, I've been in touch with the guys at Soft Pro. They really are, like I say, a class act, putting on some stacked cards in front of some packed houses. Must be being a new company on the scene, but seeing them, it's almost as if they've been around for years. The kind of the type of talent and the shows that they're putting on, and a bit of a thrill to be part of that group when they're kind of hitting the ground running. They're off to the races, aren't they?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Shotty Horror's got a lot of experience in production, in shows in general, in entertaining huge crowds. But he is handpicked. They're all pals, right? They're all friends. But the thing that I think is going to separate Soft Pro from other places is that the team is huge. There are so many people working on a Soft Pro show, and they're all there for very specific reasons. The guys the guys that started with the idea that they've then grown and put together, they have handpicked friends, colleagues, people that they know to be like, that's the perfect guy to run our social media. That's the perfect guy to make our music videos. That's the perfect guy to get in for filming. That's the perfect guy to get in for doing interviews. That's the perfect guy to get in for doing photographs. Everything has been taken care of. The team is huge at Soft Pro, and that's what's going to make them stand out, because they're a huge team, but it's not it's not the too many cooks spoil the broth situation.
Sure.
Because everyone has a role, everyone values their role, and everyone knows their role. Great, right? Yeah. To use The Rock, right? But do you know what I mean? Like, everyone is there moving in the same direction. Is great, including the talent as well.
Oh, 100%. And like I say, I'm really excited for the future of Soft Pro, and like I say, putting on some extraordinary shows already. It's remarkable to think that there are only 2 shows in, but I'm going to bring up some pictures now, and we mentioned Progress, and you made your debut with them at the Manchester show, one of the Manchester legs of the Deadly Viper Tour last October, and I think you came out during a Spike match, and that's where we first saw.
That was at the Electric Ballroom.
Oh, was it? Is that where you made your debut?
So the time that I finally stepped in and revealed that the whole time that I was working crew, I was working for Spike Trivet, was when he had the death match against Drew Parker.
Right.
And it was Drew Parker who I dropped off the top of a ladder and then chokeslammed through some thumbtacks.
Of course. And
then the first match where I was then with Spike officially as his bodyguard was Birmingham with Doris.
Right. Yes, of course. Thanks for clarifying that. And the first time I saw you kind of anywhere near a Progress ring was when you were part of the crew during Super Strong Style, during Spike's match with Cara. And you know, I was watching it back, getting ready for my interview with Cara Noir, which took place last week, and I thought, that's Bullit. That's Bullit. So now you've tied it all together. It makes perfect sense. But kind of working alongside Spike, and obviously being part of, let's be honest, one of the hottest wrestling angles, certainly in Progress, certainly in the UK in the last 12 months, which is still ongoing and still lots to unravel. There's lots of mileage left in this fantastic storyline, and you're very much front and center and in the thick of it. But pretty cool to be kind of inserted with the main guy, with the world champ, in his ongoing feud with Tom, with Cara. And it's kind of taken many different paths to where we are at the moment. Of course, the last time we saw you in the ballroom was chapter 148, Start Spreading the News, where poor Gene Money, took a hell of a beating from you guys. Before he was even able to make his entrance, you guys battered him on the stage, threw him down the stairs, walloped him with chairs, power bombed him into the side of the ring, and then to end all, chained him to the ropes. And obviously Tom came out for the save. But to be a part of that storyline from its very early days through till now, a pretty cool way to introduce yourself to a Progress audience.
Yeah, for sure. That's been the most thrilling thing about it, is like, there's a couple of people that griped with it, like people that I know. They were like, bodyguard, really? Because they've seen me on other shows, right? And they've seen that I can wrestle, but why bodyguard? And it's like, main event, Spike Trivet, championship, major storylines. Like, you'd be nuts to turn that opportunity down. Nuts. And, you know, it's also one of those situations as well where, could Spike have picked anyone? Potentially, but I was the first person who he asked, and there's a reason why I was the first person that he asked, and I was going to make sure that I was the person that said yes, because if I had said let me think about it, that could have been somebody else's opportunity. And man, it's just been nothing but good times since as well. Just I feel very blessed, man. I feel very blessed. Like, it's crazy to have gone from nothing to all of this in only a matter of months, but I'm loving it. It's incredible. The shows are great. The atmosphere at every show is fantastic, you know, and Spike's a heat magnet, man.
Well, I was going to ask you the very next question. You mentioned about atmosphere and being a heat magnet, and now you're not only alongside possibly the most hated wrestler in Progress, possibly the most hated wrestler in UK wrestling, but you're getting a lot of heat as well, Bullit. You're getting a hell of a lot of heat. And just to bring up a picture from earlier, I mean, look at the aftermath. Look at the state of that ring. This happens more often than not towards the end of every single Spike match. But not just that, you get it from the fans just as much as he does. It's his package now between you and Spike. You are both heat magnets, in my opinion. And I mean, how does that sit with you? That must be a cool feeling, I suppose, as a heel.
Yes, it's great. It's great, yeah, because I mean, it has that hasn't happened overnight, you know.
Yeah.
I had to put up with, you know, a little bit of who I is and stuff like that. Whereas now, you know, and like I'd be stood at ringside keeping an eye on the matches and making sure that nothing happens to Spike that we don't want to happen, and the insults and the comments would go past me into the ring. Whereas now I stand at ringside and I feel like I have to be on guard for what's in the ring and what's going on behind me, because there's people just spitting fire behind me, just being horrible and saying all sorts of, you know, all sorts of terrible things. Terrible people, no class.
What's kind of the most amount of heat that you've had to handle, whether it be in a progress ring or not? I'm sure there's situations where it's got a little bit close to, you know, fans being involved in the action when they're not meant to be. As the heat kind of spilled over into the ring or into a match?
Probably the strongest and most consistent heat is easily when I'm stood next to Spike.
Of course.
Easily. But I've had my own moments. I've had old ladies hit me. And, you know, I think every heel wrestler's had a kid kick them at some point. But I had to chop a fan the other day. A fan threw water at me. So I lit his chest up. And then I do get extremely volatile heat at EWE. Because anyone who's been to an EWE show or seen a video of me, mainly on the microphone, I get heat in the matches, but because I always win, I always cut a promo after I've won, and I say some horrendous things on the microphone to really just get under people's skin. It's a really intimate venue as well, so it's not the venom that I drop on the fans at EWE isn't just like a blanket comment, you know. It's an intimate venue, and so I will pick on individuals as well as the collective crowd. And so there has been some people who have come to EWE and they've never come back.
Yeah. I want to take a deep dive into EWE a bit later on, but sticking with Progress a little bit longer, we mentioned they think it's all over from November, and we mentioned that was where you made your in-ring debut, and it was against Tom Dawkins, the former Cara Noir. And I've got to say, and I spoke to you after the match in an exclusive post-show interview, you defeated Tom pretty handily and very impressively. I think it was 4 minutes 32 seconds, and I don't know whether Tom's ever suffered a loss so quick, but for anybody that may have seen you for the first time in in-ring action up until that date, if they weren't impressed already, they certainly were impressed with Bullit come the end of that match. And you demonstrated why you are the one-man armory in that match alone.
I don't get paid hourly, bro. You know, I don't get so. You got to do what you got to do, right? And so, I do and I don't respect Tom Dawkins. You know, I want Cara Noir now. You know, I said it on my social media before the match that I knew I was going to beat him. You know, I knew that I had his number, and that a lot of what people might think about, you know, the differences between me and him, some of it's based in a fantasy. And so, like, I had one game plan, which was to maul him. And I knew it would work because I'm confident in myself. But I said on my social media that I didn't want the fact that he's not Cara Noir used as an excuse. And now I just, you know, I'm torn in this situation where I know that Spike wants Tom, Cara gone. Just go away. And I agree with that sentiment as well. You know, if you don't feel at home, don't come here. If you want to go to Japan, go to Japan. You know, you still use Cara Noir everywhere else. But now I want some Cara Noir. I want to be able to prove that I can beat Tom Dawkins in 4 minutes and 20 odd seconds, and I'll beat Cara Noir in the same time.
That'd be a match I'd love to see for sure. That'd be so. I mean, moving on from here, Bullit, and obviously we got this match in Manchester in a couple of Sundays' time, or possibly this coming Sunday, the 12th, from the O2 Rex.
6 days
indeed,
away. Then, yeah.
Indeed. And it's yourself and Gene versus yourself and Spike versus Gene and Tom, of course. That will lead us nicely to chapter 150 back at the ballroom. But we do have a question that came through before we went live. And from Richie, good friend of the show. You're in one of the hottest storylines in progress with Cara and Spike. Are we going to see a twist with Bullit in this epic storyline with Cara and Spike? So I'm not quite sure what Richie might be referring to as far as a twist is concerned. But I mean, when we spoke after the show in November, you know, kind of labeled you as a henchman, as a bodyguard for Spike. But I think Bullit is very much his own individual. And is there a future within progress where it's just Bullit carving his own path?
Sure, definitely. Spike and I just have an arrangement, and then, you know, that's the part of it that's, I said to you at the time, is none of your business. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I won't talk about that publicly. I won't talk about what the situation is between Spike and I. But you know, as for what I'm capable of doing in progress, that's I mean, it's on me and Spike, but I don't think people should get it twisted that Spike's necessarily all about me looking after him. You know, Spike Trivet wants to see me do well in progress as well. So yeah, I don't know what he means by a twist. If he's assuming that anything's gonna, I don't know what twist he could be talking about, but no, there isn't going to be any twists. We're just going to win, and then Spike will beat him back at the ballroom, and then you won't see Tom Dawkins ever again.
Very interesting, very interesting. I've got to get your opinion on a personal level, and I know that after the show, I think it was unboxing, and Spike had a world championship match with Big Damo. But one of the highlights of the night for me was this here. And you got two big hosses there having a bit of a stare down. The fans inside the ballroom thought for a second that we were going to get a little bit of a tasty encounter between Damo and Bullit. But that did kind of leave us kind of salivating for a potential match between yourself and Damo. And remember, he's the Atlas champion at the minute. But on a personal level, that must have been a bit of a thrill to have that stare down with a star such as Damo. But I think the wrestling fan inside you must have thought, yeah, I'd love to see this happen. I want this match. But give us your own thoughts on you know, how you see this developing, or kind of your thoughts on the day.
That's all on progress. That is all on them now, because I want that match with Damo more than I want any other match in progress. You know, I said that I want Cara Noir, but I want Damo, because this isn't a who's better thing. You know, this isn't like size is all that matters, but just look at it purely on paper or in pictures, like that picture.
Yeah.
At progress, no one looks like me. That's one of the reasons why this has worked so well. No one looks like me, right? Except Damo, right? And so who else am I supposed to wrestle, really? Because Damo is the second biggest, but is the second biggest guy there by like millimeters to me. And then there's no one bigger. There's physically bigger. There's no one physically bigger than me in that building every time we're in there, except Damo.
Yeah.
And I know as well, I know that one thing that is important to me, because I love all wrestling, I genuinely do. And I love watching the matches between the likes of Danny Black and Joe Lando, Leon Slater. it's just incredible. Doris is incredible. You know, I do love watching their style of wrestling, but when they were starting to come through, when Ricochet and AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan were starting to bring the light through for the smaller guys to do more in a match, it was because all we'd ever had was 6'4+ guys full of muscle or fat, just tearing each other up in slow, big, hard-hitting matches. Now it's got to the point where I feel like the wrestling crowd is starved of that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
especially in British wrestling, there's other big guys out there. There's other big dudes out there like Joel Redman, like Yeston Reese, like Adam Maxted.
Yeah, Big Jim.
And I could name more. Big Jim. There's other guys that I could name, and I'm sorry if I haven't named you. Don't give me heat in the locker room. But like, they're starved of that on these main stage promotions, and so that's the other reason why I want Damo.
Absolutely.
Like I want, you said about salivating, me too, because I just want to show, especially a progress audience, that the heavyweights aren't gone. They're just forgotten. And you need to be reminded that this is what it looks like when two guys who could kick anyone's ass, especially yours, not you, John, but the fans.
Hey. I don't want to get on your wrong side.
The fans, I mean, you know,
100%.
There's some fans that get behind some wrestlers because they think they're the same as them. They're not. You know, the wrestlers that are built like you aren't like you. They're athletes. They just are a similar size to you. But you used to watch wrestling, and it would be these superhuman people that you'd watch, and that's what would be thrilling and exciting about it. And that's what me and Damo will bring. And that's that. I need it.
Progress management, if you're watching, make it happen. But we've had a few people get in touch, and first of all, the Peckham Playboy Hakan, thank you for rejoining the show. You are amazing. So there we go. Even though you're a heel, you do have your support out there, and also watching us via YouTube. Dylan's Wrestling. Yeah. Shout out to Hakan. Will Bullit always be a big bad henchman, or will he go off on his own soon? This man screams Atlas champion, so I want to focus on that last little bit. You know, the Atlas title, it's built for kind of big, hard-hitting horses, basically. You look at previous champions, and in particular the current champion, Big Damo. That title would look pretty good around your waist, wouldn't it?
Sure. I mean, if you go back and look at when I was working at ringside, I sometimes had to hold the belts, and fans would take pictures of me holding the belts, put it on social media and say, Atlas title looks pretty good on Bullit.
Yeah.
Atlas Progress title looks pretty good on Bullit. Like I was saying before, it's all priorities, right? It's the priorities that Spike and I have. Prioritizing right now is getting rid of Tom Dawkins. When the priority comes around that I want to be the Atlas champion, and Spike doesn't need my services as much, or there is space in the calendar to work towards making me Atlas champion, I will be the Atlas champion.
Yeah, absolutely. And
that's it.
Look forward to seeing how that develops. But I'm going to move on from Progress, and I introduced you at the top of the show as the current EWA champion and the current EWE Heavyweight Champion. But the EWE Heavyweight Championship, am I right in thinking that you've held that title for over 1,000 days? I've got it at about 1,100 plus days and counting. Tell us a bit about EWE and that epic championship. And obviously you've got longevity with the company, you've got longevity with the championship. But that's a pretty special reign for a company, I'm guessing, is very close to your heart.
Yeah, it is. So when I first started breaking or trying to break out, because I did wrestle, you know, at a very sort of amateur level for a number of years. Then I stopped. I got married. I had children. And then I came back to it, and then I just like, right, now or never, give it a punt. What's the worst that can happen? And it all snowballed from there. But one of the first people that I came into contact with when it came to training was the Alston Wrestling Academy in Sutton with Terry Thatcher. And then, so I trained there, and I really enjoyed my training there. I highly recommend that for people that live in the London area and want to, you know, and beginners. I do highly recommend the Alston Wrestling Academy to go and check out. But Terry then started EWE, and he naturally brought me in because I was, one of the sort of higher level students there, to put it as humbly as I can. And yeah, technically I'm the first EWE champion as well,
Right.
because I was the first EWE champion for about a minute and 50 seconds. And then Doug Williams stuck his oar in, got the match restarted, and then I got blindsided by Eddie Ryan, and he took the belt, and then I took the belt back off of Eddie Ryan 3 months later, and I've had it ever since.
You've had it ever since.
But EWE is a promotion that's close to my heart because of the close relationship I have with Terry. I feel legitimately very responsible for trying to get that promotion off the ground, because of the fact that Terry put that championship on me. He's made me main event every single show since. The only time that there's been an EWE show where I haven't been the champion, where I haven't been in the main event, it's just because I haven't been there. It's because I've had to be somewhere else. And so it's on my back to be the marquee match and to elevate the shows as best I can. And it's a responsibility that I take really seriously. And it's such a good show. It's unique in its own way. And like I say, it's the venue that makes a huge difference to us as well. The Bedford have really looked after us. It's a really nice, intimate venue where the crowd really do feel involved, heavily involved in the show. And, I'm really proud to have been EWE champion as long as I have been. And
Yeah, I mean, it looks like just got some pictures of yourself with the belt there, and obviously you got Roth, good friend of yours, really top guy. I'm hoping to get him on the show at some point. And that handsome, look at that hair. What conditioner do you use? No, forget that. But that's incredible. And we spoke about this before we went live, but some of the impressive list of people that you've defended your championship against, certainly over the last 12 months, the likes of legends of the business, James Mason, Doug Williams, Danny Duggan, who's now part of your faction in Solve Pro, and Damien and many more. But that's a pretty impressive collection of opponents there. Just since the company, I think the company only returned last summer, maybe June. So it's an impressive list, and like I say, some legit legends of the British wrestling business and further afield there. Certainly when you're talking about James Mason and Doug Williams, and Danny Duggan is somebody that you know very well. So tell us about some of them opponents, because that must have been a thrill to have defended your championship against some of those, certainly in 2022.
Yeah, I mean, to keep it short and sweet with Danny, that's where the relationship for the collective got started, because me and Danny knew each other from the road, but there was that match that we earned each other's respect, and yeah, we had a cracker. So that's where that came from. But yeah, like I say, I had a few battles early on with Eddie Ryan, and that was a stepping stone for me. Like, working with Eddie Ryan really made me come up a lot. It was like a checkpoint moment in my career, from going from being somebody that did it at a really low level, then was just trying to make the best of it he could. And then Eddie Ryan really made me go, this is a level that you need to try and get to. And he made me come up. And then that got me in the position to then meet people like Joel Redman, who, for those who don't know, is my trainer, and then he got me ready for matches with the likes of James Mason and Doug Williams, who, I mean, in the last 20 years, or the last 30 years, sorry boys, no mean to age you, but in the last 30 years are two of the best wrestlers that this country has produced, and I'll fight anyone that disagrees with me. You've got the younger guys that are doing what they're doing now with like Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate and Zack Sabre Jr. and stuff, but like, damn man, like James and Doug are just the innovators of so much.
Absolutely.
And the difference as well that I think makes the distinction between James and Doug and then other British wrestlers that have been as successful or sort of as successful, however you want to word it, is that Doug and James are the two best that this country's produced for British style. And they have taken that style around the world and made the rest of the world respect and like it. And that's the reason why I value them so highly. And that's the reason why working with them was just dreams come true. You know, I've worked James a couple of times now in different places, and I've worked Doug a couple of times in different places. I've defended both those belts, both EWA and EWE titles against Doug. And then, yeah, defended the title against James at EWE, and then been fortunate enough to work with James on other promotions, the occasional camp show and stuff. And every single time's just, it's like reading a book just with all new knowledge every time. And it makes you step up and elevate your game. They really are deserving of the legend status that they're given.
Absolutely. It's like a school day every time you step inside the ring with them. But I'm just going to bring up a few more pictures. And you mentioned EWA. And like I say, this match with Doug, you defended your title against Doug for the previous promotion, EWE. This is EWA. And this encounter, now you're a through and through babyface for EWA. Is that right, Bullit?
Absolutely. I'm the hometown hero, baby.
Absolutely. And like I say, it's taking Doug for a ride there. He's got you down. But like I say, in the end, you got the victory. And I believe this is Doug putting you over. But like I say, anytime you get the chance to face a legend like Doug Williams is a blessing, I'm sure. But and just there you are with the championship. And like I say, you're a red hot babyface for EWA. It really does. It's a real transition from what we've spoken about already.
Yeah, sure. It's a really unique way to see me in more ways than one, right? Oh yeah, Callum Newman. Because out and out babyface when I'm at EWA, I'm the hometown guy. But also, so like I said, EWE means a lot to me because I've been there since it started, and I'm just hell bent on trying to make that promotion as successful as possible. EWA, however, was a promotion that had been around for years before I got there, and they were the first. If the EWA didn't exist, either you wouldn't be talking to me now, or you wouldn't be talking to me for some time, because I would have had to have found another route in, or without EWA, I would have given up on the first hurdle and gone home. But EWA gave me my first indie paid booking.
Really?
And
how fascinating.
Yeah. They were the first place and I went to the show and I did everything the way that I believe it should be done. Went to a show, introduced myself, found out who the promoters were. I didn't know anyone there. So I went and spoke to a wrestler. I actually went and spoke to Brandon Thomas, known to other people as Bodes. And I just saw Brandon go up to they've got a cafe upstairs where there's windows that look down into the venue where the show takes place, and I saw him up there. So I just scampered out of my chair, went upstairs, and I just went, "Can I just ask you, who is it that runs this place?" He gave me the contact name. I then went and spoke to them. They invited me to the next show. I went and helped out. I put out chairs, flipped mats, set the ring up, all that sort of stuff. I think I'd worked cameraman on that show as well because I didn't look anything like I do now. And then the next show after that, they gave me a match. And then as soon as I had that match, I got two other promoters there who saw me wrestle, and they were like, "Who are you? Never heard of you before, but do you want to come wrestle for me?" Those two wrestlers then introduced me to two other wrestlers each, and then like a tree, it just went bananas. But EWA, so near and dear to my heart. And yeah, I'm again just really proud, just really super proud to be their champion and represent that company. And if you want to see me work as hard as I possibly can, it's at EWA in a main event. I work hard everywhere I go. You always get what you know. I'm being paid to do it, right? So you always get what you paid for. But EWA, it's just harder working babyface. It's just harder. That's what I mean by that. Just harder. You got to keep the crowd behind you. You got to keep the crowd invested. And EWA is a rare place that you might actually see me get my ass kicked, So,
but they pull a red hot family crowd, don't they? And I've seen a few of your matches in EWA, always loud, always raucous, always full of families and kids, fully behind you. And it was a real kind of juxtaposition to when I was doing my research. Kind of, I was always familiar with Bullit as the red hot heel. Here he's the white hot baby face, and just to demonstrate that. like I say, that the fans absolutely adore you at EWA. This may not be an EWA show, that one
No,
there.
sure.
That's probably World War, to be honest with you. But like I say, loved by the fans in other promotions. So that just goes to prove that you're not just a dastardly heel. That
sure.
you can also be a red hot babyface as well. And also for EWA, you mentioned that you defended your championship against that man there, Joel Redman, a man that's kind of become synonymous with yourself, and certainly in more modern times, a real great guy. I've had Joel on the show. I've met him at a few shows. He's always lovely. But when I saw your match against Joel, and first of all, you came out as the red hot babyface. He was the heel. Now, I've never known Joel to be booed before.
Right.
I've never known Joel to be a heel, and of course, you know, he's one of the best pros in the business. Let's be honest, and I'm sure he can do any style, any character, and he was amazing as a heel. But just to see that kind of juxtaposition between the two of you, it surprised me for a moment there. But I mean, getting to wrestle Joel must be a real treat in a similar sort of vein to wrestling a James Mason and a Doug Williams. He's another legend, isn't he?
Yes. 100%. It's not as much a thrill as a bloody hard day. Because Dan Maloney and I call Joel the benchmark, because he really fucking is, right? And you know, he's just so ridiculous at everything as well. And it was the first time I'd seen Joel work heel at that show. And I don't understand why he doesn't do that more often, and why other promotions don't see that there's obviously something there for you to work with. And the thing that I love the most about Joel as a heel, when he worked heel, is that all that allows him to do is just to be everything he could be, but isn't, because Joel is humble. And Joel is calm, and he's quiet, and I call him Captain America because he's just such a decent human being. But if he wanted to, he could just be the most arrogant twat in the world, because he looks great, he wrestles better than pretty much everyone, and he's capable of doing everything. And he just doesn't ever, that's never a part of his personality. There's zero in his personality about how good he is. And the thing that I'm enjoying the most about saying all of this is he will be somewhere right now crawling in his skin because someone's putting him over like Rover, and he'll just be like, okay, Ben, let's just okay, pal, let's just move on to something else. But he is like, it's annoying, really, just how insanely good he is.
Yeah, I mean, everybody I've spoken to about Joel has said that he is easily the best in the country. You know, further afield, he can do any style. Like you say, as he's demonstrated, he can do any type of character as well. But he is, I think, deservedly so, the benchmark of British wrestling. I can't wait to see him perform again soon. Go ahead.
To put it more simply, the best way that I can describe, especially if you're another wrestler watching this and you're wondering, like, well, okay, what's so great about Joel Redman? Go watch the CM Punk the documentary they did, the documentary WWE did on CM Punk, and when he said, "I thought I was good, and then I met Eddie Guerrero."
Right.
If you think you're good at wrestling, and you're wondering what's so special about Joel Redman, get booked against Joel Redman, and then you'll find out. That's literally how you'll find out. Is if you wrestle him, you'll realize there's levels to this, and he's at a level that's just
100%,
aggravatingly good.
We're going to talk a little bit more about Joel and see if we can embarrass him a bit more very, very soon. But a few questions that have come through. Let's have a quick look. We've got via YouTube watching this live, Terry Bartlett, Realm 28. Hi Bullit, looking forward to seeing you at the Bedford and Generators coming on the 26th of Feb. So is that the next show for EWE, or
yeah, well, there'll be they also do shows, so the easiest way to realize when EWE is on is that it's in the Bedford on the last Sunday of every month,
right,
and it's in the Tooting Tram on the first Sunday of every month. But yeah, the next time I will be there will be on the 26th.
There we go. Sounds like Terry's going to be there as well. I'm sure he'll get a chance to say hi.
Come and say hello, Terry.
Telling stories is great. It certainly is. And Peckham Playboy Hakan has been in touch. What do you feel, other than flips, is the most fundamental part of a match and character? An interesting question there. But besides flips, and
appreciate that question. I appreciate that question because I got an answer for it.
Please go ahead.
For me, intensity and believability. That's what's most important. Don't be lazy. Don't do everything like carefully and slowly. Intensity and believability. And then that answers your character thing as well. You know, be believable. Just be believable. And the easiest way for me to describe being believable from like my acting background is keep your hands on the reins so that you don't actually get lost in yourself and become a mark for yourself, but actually believe in what you're doing when you go out there.
Yeah.
You know, actually believe in what you're doing when you go out there. To break the fourth wall a little bit, it takes a certain amount of time after a progress show for Spike to go back to being Simon.
Yeah.
He doesn't walk through that curtain and go, ha, 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 because Simon's a goof. He takes some time to get out of the Spike Trivet headset, and so do I. I have to calm down when I get backstage, you know, and I'm not an asshole about it. I don't walk around like, you know, shoving Joe Lando into a wall, but I'm there, you know. I really am. I'm really there when I'm out there. So snap, intensity, and believability is crucial.
Some great answers there. And if you're,
and that's all WWE want from you as well.
Yeah.
That's all WWE are looking for is intensity and believability.
There we go. So if you're an up-and-coming wrestler, some good advice there from Bullit. And we spoke about Joel, and of course he is the head trainer at All Star Wrestling South, and based in Salisbury, where, like I say, there's a fantastic team of coaches and trainers there. But for my money, possibly one of the best training schools for professional wrestling in the UK. But of course, you wouldn't expect anything less with Joel at the helm. There's a few of the guys there. I can see yourself in the picture, James Mason, EWA, JW Reed, who I've become more familiar with, and a few others. I'm sure you'll fill us in. But tell us about your time at All Star Wrestling South. Because like I say, I mean, you can't go too far wrong when you've got Joel Redman at the helm and James Mason popping in every so often, and yourself down there on a weekly basis.
James is there on Wednesday.
Yeah. But like I say, that is a fantastic crew of people and a very well respected and renowned training school that I know that you're very much part of.
Yeah. So Joel's just announced me as one of the trainers for. There'll be a beginners class, and then there'll be 2 intermediate classes, and then there'll be an advanced class. So the intermediate classes will be taught by me, sometimes Joel, and potentially Niwa as well. The advanced class will be with Joel. It will only be to regulars. So there'll be a monthly fee that you can pay to be part of the school. But obviously you need some, if you're new, you need some time for Joel to make the distinction on where you belong, beginners, intermediate, and advanced. But for the time being, a lot of pretty much every guy that you saw in that picture, that was actually, appreciate you using that picture, John. I didn't even ask you to use that. Those are essentially the core guys that have been with Joel for so long. I'm actually trying to figure out in my head. There's a few people missing from that group. That's the core group, but those guys have been with Joel. The guy on the left with the beautiful blonde hair is Nat. Nat hasn't been training for even a year. And what he's learned, because he's only learned from Joel, is phenomenal. And then you've got, after him, you've got Brandon, JW Reed, you mentioned, Scott, myself, Luke Nimick, James Mason, Dan Jennings, and Niwa. And those guys are there every week. And when the unit's fully set up at the end of this month, going into March, those guys will be there more than once a week. And we're a solid team. We've all got each other's backs, and we all work hard to improve together and bring each other up. But it's not a closed door, you know. It's not a clique. Like we're always on the lookout for new people to come and train with us, to learn from Joel. And you know, I'll make no bones about it. It's hard fucking work, man. Like, you know, you go there. It's an hour of conditioning and an hour of wrestling. We don't walk in and run spots cold. There's a full warm up. There's a full cardio workout. There's lifts. So that's where we're carrying each other up and down the room. It's intense, and it works on your ability to not get blown up in the ring. You get blown up at training so that you don't get blown up in the ring. And everyone's got the same mentality, giving 100% and working hard. If it gets too much, take a second break, come back. That's all we're looking for. We're not looking for people to come, get blown up, fail and leave. We're looking for people that want to come, and if they find it hard, that's fine. Do it at your own pace until you can catch up, but just never give up. That's all that's really ever required, is just to not go, oh, this is hard, I can't do it. That's fine. Take a break, come back in when you're ready.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the thing that I treasure the most about the school and value the most about the school is I'm not Joel Redman, and I'm not trying to be Joel Redman. And so Joel isn't training me to be Joel Redman. He's training me to be a better Bullit, because he's got so much experience, and the people that have trained him, like the likes of James and Doug, but then over when he was in NXT, the likes of Ricky Steamboat, the likes of Dusty Rhodes, and I could name more, but I'll actually leave Joel to do that, or go and watch your interview with him to who he got interviewed by. What Joel has learned isn't just all of the technical side of wrestling. It's not just coming in and learning how to do holds and transitions. It's also, he knows how to make the best big man wrestler. He knows how to make the best high flying wrestlers. He knows how to make the most charismatic wrestlers. So he doesn't train you so that he's just going to have this cookie cutter, just constant dudes walking out the door that are just other Joels.
Yeah.
No. If you're like Joel and you want to be like Joel, and that's your ambition, he can help you get there better than anyone. Yeah. But if you're not, Bobby Vegas, Luke Nimmick, he's not trying to be Joel Redman, but the ways that Joel has helped make Luke better, the way that Joel has helped make me better, is all by just making us better versions of what we've tried to become elsewhere. But if you go and learn from Joel as a beginner, he will help you become whatever you want to be in the wrestling game.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to flash up that flyer again one more time. And as Bullit just said, the door is open. Even if you have aspirations to be a wrestler, you've never stepped through a training school before. And I do have an email address where you can make your initial inquiries. It is wrestling.salisbury@outlook.com. I'll read that out again, and I'll make sure this is in the comments. Wrestling.salisbury@outlook.com. Get in touch, and you'll hear from one of the many fine staff there that will point you in the right direction and invite you to come along and have a bit of a taster session maybe. But you'll see Bullit there as well, and you are, and many of the other great coaches there, and some of the fantastic trainees. And like I say, J.W. Reed is from my neck of the woods, fantastic talent, and in such a short space of time, he's really come on. But tell us a little bit about your wrestling fandom and how wrestling first found you, how you first came across pro wrestling. I've had some weird and wonderful stories on this podcast about how people have kind of found pro wrestling. But what about yourself? How did it come into your life then, Bullit?
Mine's as generic as it gets. So I just turned 37. So I'm from the age and the era where I was just watching Hogan and Macho Man and Ultimate Warrior and Flair. And I just loved it because it was colorful and big and stuff like that. But I have no real memories, of like the matches and what moments in wrestling that drew me in back then. It was just like, look at that crazy action, great.
Yeah.
And then I really became, but do you know what I mean? I wasn't necessarily a wrestling fan as a kid. I just liked wrestling and thought it was cool. And then I became a wrestling fan in the Attitude Era, because of course I did. I'm 37. So when The Rock and Austin were on top, when Triple H was doing his thing, I was a little bit late. Like there was a window where I missed wrestling, and I've gone back and watched it. And it's actually one of my favorite eras to go back and watch, which is that sort of 92 to 96 era.
Yeah.
Where we would probably call it the Brett and Shawn era.
Correct.
I missed all that. So when I was a teenager, and they were, the guys, the main guys that were on top was Taker, Triple H, Sean and Taker, Triple H, Mike, Steve Austin and Rock, but they bring Shawn Michaels back every so often, and Jim Ross would put him over like Rover, first ever Grand Slam champion. I'd be like, who the fuck cares about Shawn Michaels, man?
Yeah.
Shawn Michaels is my favorite wrestler now.
Yeah, 100%.
Shawn Michaels is the best wrestler that's ever lived, in my opinion. And whereas in like 1998, 1999, I was like, who cares? He's a guy from like 2 years ago, man. It's over for him.
Old news. That's what we used to think.
Exactly. I was like, he's old news, man. Whereas, I've obviously, thanks to the network, had the opportunity to go back and watch that. And then I stayed with wrestling solidly from like 98. Yeah. Like even 97, I missed most of. 98 to like 2003/4. And then in 2004, I started to break away from it. But by 2004, I was 18. And when I was 18, I was doing nothing that was ever at home to watch wrestling, you know?
Yeah, that's it. All 18-year-olds are out doing their own thing, aren't they? And,
right. And so, but I check in on
I vaguely remember what it was like to be 18.
Sure. But like, I check in on it, but I only missed like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And then 2009 is when I started watching it again. And then it was actually 2009 that I first took a bump in a wrestling ring and started my journey.
So obviously you've been dare I say it, pretty much a lifelong fan, and I'm guessing there was always these maybe desires or aspirations to copy what your heroes were doing in the ring and test out yourself. And how did you? Because the internet has obviously kind of exploded over the last 20 years or so, but there's never really been an abundance of training schools. And when you're talking, I think you said 2009, there may not have been too many training schools around. How did you establish that there was a training facility near you? How did you get in touch with them, and how did you make them first steps?
So when I started wrestling, it was real rough. Like there really wasn't a lot of choice. And like I said, I did it on a really amateur level. I mean, essentially what I did was backyarding, but it wasn't, because it just happened to be inside, but it was some guys that started at backyarders. Bless them, they all put their money together, bought a ring, and then they found halls to store the ring in, or that I think it was stored in a garage. Actually, we had to go and get it out of the garage every time and use it. And so like I did it with those guys, and they taught me a few things. They taught me something that they'd gone to a school and learned, but I just wanted a little bit more for myself. So the first training school I went to was the only one I could find, and it was Varsity Pro Wrestling. It was VPW, and I went and trained under Tom Jones, the UK kid, and fantastic training. Incredible, but I was way too immature. I couldn't hang. The reason why nobody's known about Bullit until he's in his mid-30s is because when I first started trying to do it in my mid-20s, I was an immature little div. And so you could have heard about me years ago if I'd stuck to it and grown up a bit. Because the UK kid was one of the people that trained Joel. In his earliest years, UK kid was one of the people that trained Joel. And so it was incredible training. And I still have fundamentals to this day that I learned from the UK kid easily. Still got fundamentals to this day from the UK kid. But I just couldn't hang. I couldn't hang. Like everyone there was too big. I was a skinny little twat back then as well. Like not being skinny doesn't make you a twat. I was a twat. But yeah, I couldn't hang. I was too immature, and it was just a bit too big for me, because it was so extreme as the difference as well, because I was either in a place where it was just a bunch of friends all wrestling together in a ring, or I was at a training school with gigantic dudes who were all really talented. Yeah. And the people that you were coming in for seminars was people like Billy Gunn and Bob Holly.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it was like doing it at the most amateur level to then all of a sudden being like looking up at the giants and thinking, I've got to get up there, have I? Oof. And I couldn't do it back then. I couldn't. So
did you have many opportunities back in them early days? No. And it was kind of like you were out as quick as you were in then, basically, back in the mountains. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think I did like somewhere between 5 to 8 months with the UK kid, and like I'd say like 5 solid months, and then like started peeling off for like the last 2 or 3, and then eventually just stopped going. But yeah, there wasn't a lot of opportunity to be had
there wasn't this ridiculous amount of indie promotions, you know. Progress was years from existing. Rev Pro was years from existing. Like, but funnily enough, like the year that I started wrestling is the year that EWA was established as well.
Right.
But and even though what it was, well, I'm from a town called Marlow, which sits next to High Wycombe, which is where EWA is from. The reason why I started wrestling in 2009 was because in 2009 I moved from Marlow to Reading. So when I started wrestling, I didn't live local to Marlow and High Wycombe anymore. So I had no idea there was a promotion there. None whatsoever. So again, I could have been an EWA original. Opportunity and timing. Like I said, it's everything in wrestling. And so it wasn't the right time for me to try and really push myself in wrestling. I had other things that I wanted to do. I wanted to get married. I wanted to have kids. But it's all just been a happy coincidence. And like, other than the UK kid, I have bumped into every single person who I met at that school. I have seen them all on the road now, every single one of them. And it's been great to see them.
That's really cool.
It's been great to see them. Yeah. And so,
absolutely.
yeah, like, but yeah, and then I could have been an EWA original, but it wasn't right. It wasn't the right time for me. And you know, I got there eventually.
I'm guessing that obviously you led your life. Then you got married, had kids. I'm guessing you remained a fan of the sport. Was there any regrets that you didn't pursue that initial set of training, or was you kind of happy that you'd stepped away when you did during that time? And the second part of that question is, what kind of changed your mind? What pulled you back in, and you know, what brought you back into wanting to become a pro wrestler?
So yeah, I'll do the second question first, right? So
yeah,
it's a really simple answer. A guy I used to be mates with was like, I want to do a goodbye show. And I was like, yeah, all right, let's do that. Because the amateur wrestling promotion, it just kind of ended. And there was never like we're not going to do this anymore. So here's one last show, goodbye. And then, so that got bought back first, you know? And then when I went back to that, I was like, this just isn't enough for me anymore. Like with 3 years off, I felt better at it, and like it clicked even more for me than it had done in the first few years. So that's all it was just somebody wanted to bring the old group back. So I did that. But when I brought it back, I was like, I need more than this now. I got to try and get more than this. So I did. That's the reason why I took the pun. I'm like 20/80 on regret, right? So 20% of me regrets it because I think, where could I be? What could I have achieved? What could I have done? Would I have been good enough to have made it into the NXT UK tournament? Would I have been in NXT UK? Would I have? Because I mean, if you actually wind the clocks back to when I started, I could have actually have met Joel that much earlier, that maybe I would have gone to NXT with Joel if I had, you know, just had somebody like him get on my case even earlier and say, sure, train right, eat right, work out. Do you know what I mean? Grow up. But that's 20%. 80% of me, no regrets, none whatsoever, Because if I had all of those things, if I'd had the main event of WrestleMania by now, because I'd actually pushed myself and had been good enough, I wouldn't have my wife and kids. So I've got nothing to regret at all. Nothing.
Yeah. And when you did come back, obviously you more wiser to the world and still in love with wrestling like you were before, but probably in a better frame of mind to take it more seriously, or to, you know, really pursue your desires in pro wrestling. And you were obviously kind of happier and more fulfilled kind of upon your return and your second time round. Did you find that there were mentors in the business around that time when you came back that helped to put together what we know of Bullit today and started to shape and mold you into the character we have in 2023?
Yeah, easily. So so when it comes to promoters and them giving me a platform, and therefore there's a certain amount of mentorship in that as well. It's Carl Snook at EWA, Terry Thatcher at EWE. When it comes to trainers and mentors and guys that I'm in the ring with, it literally went in this order: Eddie Ryan, who introduced me to Doug Williams, and then Eddie Ryan and Doug Williams introduced me to Joel Redman, and that's it. That's my journey. That's my journey. And there's like a real common sort of scene between those three guys as well.
Yeah.
And the thing that I really like about it is that if you met me tomorrow, you wouldn't have a clue, because of how I wrestle, the character I am, the look I have, that I've got anything to do with Doug Williams, Joel Redman, and Eddie Ryan. You wouldn't have a clue, because I'm nothing like them. But those three guys knew how to help make me who I am today.
Yeah. Just an intriguing question from myself. Where did the name Bullit come from?
Don't make me right.
Is there a PG answer to this? I don't know, but
yeah, 100%. It's a meaningful answer to it, so I don't want to get emotional. It's what my dad called me as a kid. That's it.
Okay.
My dad called me that. Whenever my mum used to shave my head, I thought that having a shaved head made me run faster because of less wind resistance. And so my dad, probably taking the piss out of me, used to call me Bullit, because of the shape of my head. With a shaved head, it looked like the tip of a bullet, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's it. And a lot of what I do in wrestling is based around my dad, who's still alive, by the way. I always have to say this because I talk about it like this, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's all about your dad's memory." No, my dad's in Oxfordshire. He's fine, right? But I wear black and blue because my dad was a policeman.
Right. Gotcha.
I call myself Bullit because that's what my dad called me when I was a kid. And a lot of what I do, like not necessarily the character, because, you know, my dad's like a really, I mean, he's a goofball now. Like the older he gets, the more of a goofy man he becomes. But when I grew up, because he was a policeman, he was a very disciplined, very, you know, he wasn't strict in any way, but he was a disciplined, forward-thinking man. And so that plays a part in who I am. But that is also, to go full circle, what has made Progress so enjoyable. Because when Spike came to me and said, "How would you feel about looking after me at Progress?" I told him then I'm all over that, because what my dad did, like the biggest highlight for his police career was he protected royalty. He was in the royalty protection squad, so he looked after politicians and members of the royal family. And so I've asked him questions about that. And so then the idea of looking after somebody like Lord Spike Trivet, the Progress Wrestling Champion, I've got all of that up here from my dad. Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
And so I said to him, I was like, that's the dream job for me, because I know exactly how to make that work. So when you see me stood there, stoic, making sure that I'm aware of every single human being's movement in the ring, that's because in my head, that's what my dad would have been doing.
Yeah, brilliant. What a fantastic story. And there we go. Really, really stunned by that. It's fantastic. I'm going to bring up a picture. Now, you mentioned about how different you were at the beginning of your career compared to now. Now, there's always at least one picture I bring up that accidentally embarrasses my guests whenever I do these things. But to look at you now, and you know, the physique, the strength, the body, the size, the power. Where did that come from? And that wasn't there kind of during your early days, but obviously something that you developed and you trained hard and you continue to train hard. And obviously there's a lot of nutrition there and a lot of weight. But when did kind of the body start coming together? Was it during the few years when you were out and you kind of started to think about your look when you returned, or how did kind of the mass start developing?
So, I mean, I've always been really honest about this, right? So steroids are involved, right? But never in the way that, like, never at the time that you'd think, right? So I actually took steroids only for 1 year. I cycled on and off for 1 year. And it was just before I stopped wrestling, and all I did was get fat. Right. So you saw from that picture, when I first started wrestling, I was a beanpole. I was really skinny. Yeah, the one on the left, right? I was just really skinny. And I was like, I need to get bigger. And eating food wasn't working because I wasn't doing that right. And training wasn't working because I wasn't doing that right. So I took steroids for a year and I just got fat. But the other thing that happened as well in those early years, I'd have some days where I'd look quite trim, some days where I'd look quite flabby, and then some days where I just look, you know, skinny fat, just like in the middle. I was always 15 stone, always 15 stone. So 15 stone ripped, 15 stone fat, 15 stone skinny, 15 stone. Whereas the only thing that taking steroids did for me was push through a weight barrier. But then what I had to do, and you asked the question, when did it change? Was when around the time I got married, because I had to lose all of that mass and all of that just fat mass that I'd put on from taking steroids. I had to lose all of that to get nice and trim for getting married. And then, so I wanted to look nice in a suit. And then as soon as that was over, that is when I started my natural journey to getting bigger. But what was beneficial for me was I've been lifting weights since I was 19. So it's not like I was nothing and started to lift weights in 2015.
You already had a bit of a base there.
I had a great base.
Yeah.
I had a great base by 2015 because I'd lost the weight, but I kept quite a lot of decent size. And so that's all it is. So I'm not going to sit here and bullshit and say that it comes with time. And I get that quite a bit. I get that every so often from like a young fan or a young wrestler. It's like, what have you done to get that big? And I just tell them, I'm 30 at the time when they would have asked, I'd have been 35, 36. I'm 37. I'm 37 years old. The reason why I'm this big is because I've had 18 years more time to get this big than a 22-year-old has. But yeah, I can't say that without mentioning the fact that I cut corners once upon a time, and I call it cutting corners because I didn't do that properly either. It's like I said to you, the reason why I couldn't make it as a wrestler in my early to mid 20s because I was just way too immature, so I had no idea what I was doing. Whereas doing it the right way, doing it naturally, getting my diet down with thanks to training tips from Yeston Reese and diet from Yeston Reese, as well as training tips from Joel and training tips from other wrestlers that have got good physiques. You know, I'm always picking people's brains of how do you get that extra bit of curve on your tricep and what do you do to, you know, bring the quads out a little bit more. You know, I'm always asking guys questions and learning and stuff, but it's time. Time is the answer. Just consistency and time. That's the reason why I look so substantially different to how I looked when I first started.
Of course. And for anybody watching us live at home, we really appreciate you tuning in and watching this live episode of Wrestling with Jonas. They're all live. I don't know why I'm saying this one's any different to my usual weekly interviews, but it's still time for you to send in your questions to Bullit. If you've got any questions you want to ask about what he's up to at the moment, any memories of Bullit from over the years, any fascinating questions you might have, please send them through now. And I want to talk to you about your moveset and your repertoire and your arsenal of offense. And I always pay particular attention to the big guys. I've always been a fan of the bigger guys in the ring and the heavyweights and the super heavyweights and what they can do. And some of your moves, that looks a bit like a Claymore kick there, if I'm not mistaken, Bullit.
It is, yeah.
Very impressive. And of course, your infamous leg drop there. And of course, there's a before and after picture there of Bullit doing the leg drop. Of course, your very impressive sit-out power bomb, and of course, your choke slam, the move that you put away Tom Dawkins with. But a lot of those moves might be classed as typical big man moves, but I think you put a little bit of extra mustard behind your moves, a little bit of extra sauce, because they always look incredible. Not only are they impressive, but I think you kind of follow through on all of your moves. And I think you said it earlier, where you need to kind of really believe in yourself and believe in what you're doing. But your repertoire, your arsenal, very, very impressive. What's the inspiration behind some of their moves that's kind of part of this Bullit package we've got nowadays?
Trial and error. I mean, again, you look back at some of the moves I've done before. I kept hold of doing a spear for ages, but then I started to realize that I'm so much taller than so many wrestlers. Yeah, there's wrestlers that are tall enough or taller than me, but so many wrestlers are shorter than me that for me to get down and spear somebody that's like 5'7", it's just awkward. It's not a good looking spear. So I just trial and error as to what looked good. And I'm not afraid of that as well. I don't see the need to reinvent the wheel. I'm not afraid of doing something that's been done before. Just do it better than anybody else that's going to be on a show with you. That's it. You know, there's other guys that choke slam, there's other guys that set up a power bomb, but if you think yours is better, I literally make an invite to you now to get a clip of me doing my choke slam, get a clip of you doing yours, and you show me that yours is better than mine, and then maybe I'll consider not doing it. But also, this is a business, so show me you doing yours, and also show me a video that doesn't look like you've actually just killed somebody legitimately.
Yeah.
Because speak to any wrestler I work with, that choke slam looks the business, but unless you're Dan Maloney in the dome where his ribs nearly burst out of his chest, I look after my opponents. You know, I'm a professional, so nobody gets hurt taking that choke slam, nobody gets hurt taking that sit up power bomb, and it looks like that.
Oh,
that's what I'm most proud of. You know.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I've also think you've got the most devastating chop in the business. And hold right there, because I've got something that will back my statement up. Watch this. Joe Lando has never been the same since.
He doesn't make eye contact with me when I see him anymore. No.
I think that was the most impressive backflip he's done in a long time, and it's because of that impressive chop. But that's something that I wouldn't want to sample as a wrestling fan. I think you mentioned earlier that you chopped a fan after he threw water over you. But has Joe ever forgiven you after that?
I don't know. Like I say, I mean, you know, I always try and say hello to him because I really like Joe Lando, but he's always like, "All right, mate." No, I'm joking. Yeah, of course, the relationship's great with Joe. He's
top guy,
lovely man.
Top guy. One company I want to mention, and it's World War Wrestling, based over in Suffolk. Obviously, Brett Meadows' promotion there, and I think you first came onto my radar. And I think I've told you this in person, was during lockdown, surprisingly, the Battle of the Barns, where obviously World War Wrestling, they taped several shows available on YouTube. Just go onto World War Wrestling's YouTube channel and you can see all the Battle of the Barns there, 2020. And I don't know over how many days you filmed this for, but that's kind of where you first came onto my radar. And remarkably, it was in front of no fans. I spoke to Tom Dawkins last week about the Peckham era, just the cameraman, the ring, the venue, and the two talent in the ring. But what was that like, especially with no fans and being in a barn? I've heard from other people that it was very, very cold taping.
Oh, freezing,
yeah, very cold.
Yeah, it was a freezing cold barn. I watched that. I watched Tom talking about the Peckham era and stuff, and you know, it's really interesting and compelling what he had to say. And like, one of the things that stood out for me was the fact that they had to film like in bulk, right? So we filmed, there was two different occasions that we filmed, and there was the Christmas one that we filmed, and then there was the other one that we filmed, which was, I think, sort of put out in 3. But both of them we filmed in a day, so we didn't film all of that in a day. We filmed the ones that went out as a 3 in a day, and then we filmed the Christmas one in a day. And one of the things that stood out for me about what Tom had to say about the Peckham era for Progress was that it was really rough. Like, Tom had to have 3 main events in one day and stuff, but they all powered through together. And so, wrestling in front of no crowd was different and interesting. But we had such a good atmosphere with World War Wrestling.
Yeah,
you know, one of the things I always value Brett on is he books a happy locker room, and so everyone just gets on and everyone's just pals, you know. So it was that, like, there was a little bit of noise. If you actually go back and watch, there is a little bit of crowd noise in the World War Wrestling tapings, but that's us, and that's us not just going, "Way, that was great." It's us like really popping for each other, you know, because we're there giving it our all and doing what we, you know, putting on good matches, and you know, they're legitimate reactions from your friends that are watching you have a match. So that was really fun, and we blessed Brett for doing that as well. Bless Brett for doing that. Do you know what I mean? Because it was a small crew. you know, and not everyone was getting that opportunity. You know, the Progress guys were getting an opportunity. Rev Pro were doing their tapings down at the unit where the school is. But
there wasn't much else. There wasn't much else.
There wasn't anything else on. People were,
yeah.
you know, were sat, you know, just twiddling their thumbs waiting for it to come back. And yeah, it was really, really cool that not only that Brett did it, but that Brett got me in to do it as well. So
yeah, absolutely. And their current champion, Cory McCrea. I know that Will Cruz was the World War Wrestling champion for a long time. Yep. Cory McCrea is now the champion, a formidable opponent. So somebody I know that you know very well and have had your confrontation. You've had your matches with Cory McCrea over the years, but none whilst he's been the World War Wrestling champion. Sure. Dare I say, one more match could be in the offing between yourself and Cory, and dare I say, I'm going to bring up that picture again, but that Claymore could be the one that wins you the championship. Is that a bout that you have one eye on, and maybe Cory McCrea, you know, could be an opponent that you've got in your vision for 2023?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Because, like I said, where EWE and EWA have always been part of my wrestling journey from the beginning, World War Wrestling is also something that was part of my wrestling journey from the beginning. But World Wrestling's a promotion that I've never held any gold in, so 100%. And I want to do it the right way as well. You know, like the only reason why Cory McCrea's got that belt is because he cheated to beat me. You know, so I didn't get my shot at Will Cruz because Cory McCrea didn't beat me clean. So yeah, I want to do it the right way. So I'm not begging for a match against Cory McCrea. He can wait. I want a match against Will Cruz. Do you know what I mean? You can either give Will Cruz a rematch, or you can get Will Cruz to face me to decide who the #1 contender is, because I didn't get a fair shake at the shot of the title.
Yeah.
He's just lost it. So how about me versus Will Cruz, and the winner of that can go and see Cory and deal with him?
That would be fascinating. Yeah, definitely be up for that.
Oh, yeah.
It needs to happen. Just looking at a couple more of your highlights in a nutshell of 2022. Some of these we have touched on already, some we haven't. But obviously some of the really big names that you've gone in there with, Dan Maloney, Doug, Joel, James Mason. In 2021, or certainly in the last year and a half, you made your debut for All Star Wrestling, which is a fantastic milestone. A company that's been around 50 plus years, making your debut for Pro Wrestling Malta in the main event, no less, for the championship. Making your debut for TNT Extreme as well. Fighting for WAW at Fightmare against Niwa, somebody you know very, very well. As well as being featured in, let's say, the main event storyline at Progress. So many cool moments, so many fun things to look back on just in the last year to year and a half there, Bullit.
Yeah, man. It's not until you just listed them off that I go, Christ, yeah, that is all the stuff that's happened in the last year and a half. Because it's just been such a whirlwind, man.
Yeah.
It really has. It's just all come flying in like a hurricane out of nowhere. But and every single one of those moments just meant the world to me as well. Like wrestling for All Star was such a big tick, such a big box to get ticked. And not only have I worked for All Star, I've had the pleasure of working tours for All Star, and then I've also had the pleasure of working for All Star in venues where I saw All Star as well. So
right, that's really cool.
Wickham Swan and the Hexagon. So Wickham Swan in Wickham, Hexagon in Reading. I've been able to perform on both of those shows, which was great. But then the other big venue. So then the venues that I don't have any appreciation of because I'm not from the area, but goddamn, some of the venues that the Brian Dixon and All Star have are just second to none. And so to perform in some of those places has just been great. And I was very privileged to sort of be part of the team for a good few tours, and huge accomplishment, man. Like not everyone 100%. Gets to go to All Star, and I was very well looked after there, and I have Joel to thank for that as well. That was a connection through Joel.
Yeah, and All Star really tend to work with the best of the best. They want extra experienced talent on their shows.
Charlie
they are considered.
And
they're considered the best. Yeah. So
they've all been there as well when I've been there. Yeah, like I say, Charlie and Dan and Adam Maxted and stuff have all been there. And then there's guys that have that I consider to be top tier talent now that have
Yeah.
been there. You know, they're not there when I'm there, but they've been there in the past. You know, they've done their tours for All Star as well. So
yeah,
that was cool. And then the other one as well was for WAW. I actually met the Knights really early on as well. Like I'd only been making my effort to break out for like what felt like 5 minutes, and I came into contact on camp shows with Zach and Ricky Senior, and just hit off a really good relationship with them straight away. But you know, I'm not the closest to them in distance, so it's not always been the easiest one to work out to get me up. But then, you know, when they met me as well, I was still, compared to now, just green as goose shit, right? So they liked me, and they always kept me in mind, and they gave me loads of summer work, and I was always really appreciative of that. But yeah, again, just where things exploded in the last year and a half, timing is everything and opportunity is everything. So just the timing and opportunity worked out perfectly for me to not just go and do some more camps for them as I'd done in the past, but go up to the performance center and do some shows in front of their crowds. And damn, man, like if you can go to a WAW show at the performance center and watch how just into it their crowd are. It's unbelievable. That's one I should have used an example when you asked me earlier about top heat.
Sure.
Because working at WAW as a heel is unbelievably fun, because that crowd is so into it. And I've also had the privilege that every time I've been there, I've either worked a member of the family or I've worked one of their top students who's really popular to the local crowd. And it's so good.
Yeah,
it's so good. It's the atmosphere in that PC is unbelievable.
Indeed. And a final couple of questions from me. And we spoke about crowd heat. We spoke about what an amazing babyface you can be in certain promotions. And I think I've got the promotion right here, but it's Kapow. And at some point during the last 6 to 8 months, I think there was a match between yourself and Bobby Vegas. Now, you probably know where I'm going with this, but you had Bobby outside the ring. And then before you knew it, you invited all the kids out of the crowd with their rubber hammers and their foam fingers to essentially attack Bobby Vegas. And in this video that's on your Instagram, so please go and check it out, set to some very moving, emotional music. You must have had about 20 to 25 kids down, all with their rubber hammers and foam fingers, wailing away at Bobby Vegas while you were there kind of holding him down. I've got to say, I popped for that big time. That made me laugh. I must have watched it about 5 or 6 times.
So two funny things about that moment.
Go for it, please. 2
funny things about that moment is, one, if you watch that video, it was Bobby Vegas who made the video with the music on it.
Yeah.
And as it slows down to slow motion, if you watch, Bobby is getting destroyed with these inflatable mallets and baseball bats. And as soon as one hits me in the face, I say stop. I just put my hands up and go, stop, go back to your seats. As soon as that first one hits me, I'm like, right, this is done. But to break again the fourth wall a little bit, I had Bobby in the camel clutch. But those kids in Crawley were so vicious that they started hitting him in the face with the mallets and slapping him in the face. So I moved my hand, so you can see me on the camera. I moved my hand position from under his chin like that, and then I just moved my hands like this, and then I just put my hands over his face to now protect Luke as opposed to Bobby from getting a black eye from some insane child in Crawley with a rubber mallet or their hand. It was crazy. They were insane. But yeah, all I had to say, there wasn't a big speech, there wasn't a big line. I just went, bring the mallets. No, bring the hammers. I said, bring the hammers.
Yeah.
I said, bring the hammers, and that was it. They flew off of those bleachers down onto the floor, and went bananas on him.
Honestly, go and check out Bullit's Instagram. I'm pretty sure that's where I saw it, and that's where the video that Bobby edited together with music. You got to see it. Just have you in tears, absolutely crying with laughter.
It was great.
And the final thing from me, and I got this from your Instagram, and I hope you don't mind me bringing it up, but a little statement that you put up on your socials recently about you and your love for the sport, and I'm going to read it out. There's nothing better than a good journey for something you love. I often say when I'm asked my fee and expenses, it's all expenses. I wrestle because I love it. You're paying me to leave my family and spend time on the road. However, you're really paying me to not be at home with my family because I really fucking enjoy this journey I'm still on, and every literal journey it includes. So that obviously a very heartfelt moment about what it means as for yourself being in the business, a pro wrestler, that it does take you away from your family, days and weeks at a time when you add it all up. But there's still that love for the sport all these years later, both as a fan and as a performer. Sum up to me kind of what that statement meant to you, or what the inspiration behind those words.
I mean, there wasn't really an inspiration behind it. That is something that I've said on more than one occasion. It was something that I think got repeated in the car on the way home from South Pro last night. The guys that I was in the car with, we were talking about fees and the economy and, what wrestlers have to charge these days, compared to what we probably deserve compared to singers and actors. We're paid peanuts, man, for what we do, but we all do it because we love it. We all do it because we love it.
Yeah. And
so it got brought up again. So yeah, I don't know what really inspired me to put it out as a post, but I stand by that. And any promoters listening to this, that doesn't mean you get to just pay me my expenses. You're paying me my fee as well. But it is that the only thing that's hard in wrestling, other than the politics, is leaving my kids. It's leaving my wife and kids. It's the only thing I struggle with. I'll tell you a story about how the only time it's really been noticed that it affected me was I had this mad week over a half term where it was doing a tour for All Star, and as well as some other indies. And so I worked the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, twice on Sunday. Then I worked for Brian on the Monday. I worked for Ollie Peace on the Tuesday. And then I went back to Brian to work on the Wednesday, Thursday. I then worked in Indy on the Friday. I worked a double on the Saturday. And then I went all the way down to Plymouth to do Reach's big Plymouth Guildhall show. And I sat in the back and I was miserable. I was just a grumpy, quiet shitbag, miserable. And LA Taylor, who's known me for a long while now, she didn't ask me if I was okay. She didn't ask me what was wrong. She just sat next to me and she said, "You haven't seen your kids in ages, have you?" She just knew immediately what was wrong with me. And I went, "Somebody tell you that?" And she said, "No, I can just tell by the mood you're in." And I went, "That's exactly what's wrong with me. I haven't seen my kids for more than probably an hour and a half in 10 days.
Yeah.
And it was rotten, which is also another reason why even with this push, I've never pushed myself to try and get signed. I have no interest in getting signed whatsoever. And I know that a lot of people say that to save face. It's not about saving face for me. It's because I'm not leaving my family. I'm not moving my family to the States just so that they can see me for a day and a half on a Wednesday and Thursday morning before I'm back on the road for WWE or AEW, or I'm not moving to Japan. None of it. No interest in that whatsoever. I am a British wrestler based in Britain who wants to do as much as he can in the business in Britain. Whereas I have no interest in signing with anyone and having somebody who has me under contract to tell me where I need to go. I want to be able to come home whenever I want. I want to be able to spend as much time as I want at home, because I would, if I was ever met with that choice of wrestling or family, you can't get the question out before I shout family at you. But I don't have to make that choice. So while I don't have to make that choice, I'm getting everything out of British wrestling that I can.
Absolutely. And thank you for explaining that and clarifying that. Now, before we ask you for your socials, before we wrap up this fantastic episode of Wrestling with Johners with Bullit, just want to remind my viewers, my followers at home, the remaining interviews I have lined up for the month of February. And like I say, we've already had Bolorama last Wednesday, Cara Noir last Monday. Yeah, Bolorama, fantastic dudes, really great interview, an epic interview today with Bullit. But next Monday, I've got the wonderful SoCal Val coming on the show, and her unique insight into her life on the road, her life in professional wrestling, North America, across Europe, the UK, commentating, being an MC, being a host, being a podcaster as well. And SoCal Val has done absolutely everything in the wrestling business. Can't wait to hear her perspective, her story on what she's been done over however many years. And then that same week, next Thursday, we've got the fantastic Liver Bird Lizzie Evo coming onto the show Thursday the 16th of February at 8 p.m. live on the Wrestling with Johners podcast. That's another fantastic interview with a truly unique perspective on everything she's been able to achieve, starting the business from a very early age and doing some amazing things on the UK scene. And then the following Monday, the 20th, I've got Harrison Bennett, Man Like Bino, coming onto the show. And I've spoken to Bino backstage at shows. He doesn't do podcast interviews. So if you want to hear Bino's journey, then you're going to have to tune into the Wrestling with Johners podcast, 8 p.m. sharp, Monday the 20th of February. I know he's recently come back from a trip over to New Zealand, so we'll be talking about that, and his wonderful efforts up and down the country. I know he's absolutely everywhere, and he deserves to be in more places. And then we've got the 23rd of February, Bronco Brendan White, one half of the Greedy Souls, the man behind New Wave Academy and New Wave Wrestling, will be live on the Wrestling with Johners podcast. And that is, let me just clarify, that's going to be Thursday, the 23rd of February. Another fantastic interview to wrap up the month of February. Well, maybe not, because I've also got a Legends Masterclass dropping at the end of the month with Johnny Kidd. So part one of my Johnny Kidd interview will be dropping at the end of the month. So a fantastic lineup to wrap up February. I'll be announcing my March and April lineup in due course. But yeah, like I say, Wrestling with Johners, we are doing some big things out there. And of course,
for sure,
no bigger and no better than with Bullit today. So a pretty impressive lineup there. Some people you know very well, I'm sure, Bullit.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, I mean, I literally like everyone on that list except John Dawkins, but yeah, they're great. That's a great lineup of interviews. I'm going to be watching those, pal, because I want to hear what people have to say. And yeah, Harrison Bennett, man, I know he doesn't like doing stuff like this, so that's a big get. And then Brendan White's got a great story. Yeah. Just how long he's been doing it, and the people that he's seen come past him. And then Lizzie Evo is just such a great character to have in the business and around us. I was with Lizzie Evo last night in Soft Pro, and yeah, she's so unique. There's no one like Lizzie. So
absolutely.
What a lineup.
Join us on that journey. Subscribe to us if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe to us on whichever audio platform you're listening to us on, and follow all of our socials to get all the updates. But Bullit, it's been amazing talking to you for quite a while now, over an hour and a half.
Yeah,
but it's absolutely flown. It's been an absolute pleasure and a delight. But before we say goodbye, an opportunity for you to throw out your socials. So if you want to find out more about Bullit, we want to maybe see some of your matches, buy some of your merch, or just follow you on your socials, or just reach out and say hi, where can we do so? And if it does help, I've got a ticker with some of your handles running along the bottom of the screen.
I mean, yeah, it's literally so. Yeah, I mean, it's a good opportunity being on the podcast to say I am crap at Twitter. I don't know what I'm doing on Twitter. You will probably be able to see me on Twitter resharing a post about a show that happened 2 weeks ago. That's how crap at Twitter I am. So I don't go on it. Don't try and contact me on Twitter, because I do have an account. But the only things that really end up on there now is if I actually bother to remember to click the slider on Instagram to share something on Instagram to Twitter.
Gotcha.
Same with my Facebook. I've got the Bullit Pro Wrestler Facebook page, but that's just all automatically shared from Instagram to that page. So at Bullit Benno on Instagram is the best way to keep on top of what I'm doing, but also the best way to reach out to me as well. If you want to message me, then just message me at Bullit Benno, because that's the thing that I have the time of day to deal with as a 37-year-old dad of two.
I don't blame you. I do not blame you. And that's my social platform of choice as well, if I'm honest. Bullit, it's been incredible speaking to you and taking a deep dive into your life, your love of pro wrestling, your career. I hope you've enjoyed this interview every bit as much as I have. But I want to thank you so much for your time. Yeah, thank you, dude. It's been great. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it, mate. Thank you for having me on. It means a lot. There we go. And we'll catch up with you soon. Take care. Cheers.